Okay, so let's talk about something you've probably heard a million times, but maybe never really thought about. Why do we call ships she? It's this strange little quirk in our language that's been around forever. And trust me, the real story behind it is way more interesting than you'd expect. I mean, think about it. You've got this colossal piece of steel, right? Maybe it's even named the USS John McCain or some other famous man. And yet, people still call it she. How does that even make sense? What's the deal with that? Right off the bat, let's just get one thing straight. If you're thinking the answer is simple like, oh, the word for ship in Old English was probably feminine, well, you'd be wrong. It's a super common assumption, but it's just not true. Yep, the Old English word skip was neuter. Not feminine, not masculine, neuter. So that neat little grammatical explanation, it's out the window. This means we have to dig a lot deeper into a really cool mix of culture, how sailors think, and some pretty ancient history. All right, let's get into the real story. This is a question that's been around for ages, and to answer it, we've got to look at language, the psychology of being at sea, and even some old school mythology. So check out this timeline. We're talking way, way back. The first time we actually see this written down is in 1375. And it wasn't just some casual thing, it became totally official. I mean, Lloyd's List, the authority on this stuff, used she for almost 300 years before, finally switching things up in 2002. Okay, so we know it's not from Old English grammar. What's the next logical guess? Maybe we just borrowed it, right? From other languages that influenced English over the years. Well, this is where it gets a little messy. You look at Latin, and yep, the word navis is feminine. That seems like a solid lead, right? But then, you look at French and Spanish, both huge seafaring nations, and their words are masculine. In German, it's neuter, just like Old English. So it's definitely not as simple as just grabbing the rule from somewhere else. And this, right here, is the key. We're not dealing with grammar rules that you learn in school. This is something else entirely, what linguists call metaphorical gender. It's basically us deciding to give an inanimate object a personality, a soul. It's about personification, not grammar. And this is where the story gets really human. We're moving beyond language now and into the minds and hearts of the sailors themselves. Think about it. For them, the ship wasn't just a thing. It was their lifeline. Imagine being out at sea for months, maybe years, in an all-male world. The ocean is trying to kill you every single day. What's the one thing keeping you alive? The ship. It becomes your protector, your provider, almost like your mother. It's this maternal, life-giving force in a world of pure chaos. And that idea is a huge piece of the puzzle. But hey, it's not all so profound and poetic. There's also the, let's call it the cheeky explanation. Admiral Nimitz famously joked that a ship is a she because she costs a fortune to keep in paint and powder. It's a bit of old-fashioned humor for sure, but it shows another side of that personification. Okay, but the roots of this go even deeper. We're talking way, way back. Back to the age of myths and legends, when sailors looked to the heavens for protection against that big, scary ocean. And you can actually trace how this belief evolved, which is so cool. First, ancient sailors would dedicate their ships to goddesses, like Aphrodite, hoping she'd grant them safe passage. Over time, that abstract idea of a female protector became a physical thing, the figurehead on the bow of the ship. That woman with her eyes wide open, she wasn't just art. She was the soul of the vessel, literally guiding her through the waves. So that brings us to today. This ancient tradition is now smack in the middle of a modern debate. Is it a cool piece of history, or is it kind of outdated? Not everyone agrees we should keep doing it. And you couldn't ask for a better example of this clash. On one hand, you have Lloyd's List, a massive name in shipping, saying, look, it's time to catch up with the modern world, and they switched to using it. But on the other hand, you have the British Royal Navy saying, absolutely not, this is our culture, our history, and they are sticking with she. It's tradition versus modernity playing out right there. So after all that, after looking at old words, sailor psychology, ancient goddesses, and modern arguments, where does that leave us? Is there one single aha moment that explains everything? Well, the truth is, no. There's no single reason. It's more like a recipe with a bunch of ingredients. You've got a pinch of Latin, a cup of sailor psychology, a dash of ancient religion, and a whole lot of romantic tradition. All of those things came together to create this one practice that's been with us for hundreds and hundreds of years.
And really, that's what makes this so fascinating. Calling a ship she is like a little time capsule in our language, connecting us to a past where people saw the world very differently. And the debate about it today makes you wonder, doesn't it? As our own world keeps changing, what other parts of our language will we decide to keep? And what parts will we just leave behind in our wake?